Okay, this is my kitchen monologue number 4, and today is January 17th, 2010, and it's been about 20 days, less than a month, since I recorded kitchen monologue number 3. But when I tried to look back and sum up what took place in those 20 days or so, I believe that there were a lot of progress, if we can call it that way. And basically it was progress in uncovering what I call the culture of deceit in the district court in Los Angeles, in other district courts, in courts of appeals, in state courts, it's banking regulators. It's an up and down and all around prevalent culture in United States government, in correctional institutions, and at financial institutions as well. So it's a widespread culture of deceit. To start out, maybe I should state that in the past I called some part of it Kozinski fraud, which I defined as the custom by United States courts and courts of appeals of serving on litigants, particularly on pro se litigants, and even more so on prisoners, papers that appear like court orders and judgments, but in fact there are papers that are considered by the court itself as null and void in advance, a priori. And in the past, the most prominent example that I had of that was an order served by Chief Judge Kozinski of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal on prisoner without warrant, attorney Richard Fine. Since the last time I recorded, I managed to connect with Scott Uminsky, who is pretty well known in First Amendment circles from a landmark litigation called Uminsky versus Corsones, where Corsones is a state judge in Vermont that Scott Kozinski sued. And I managed to, and he's been involved in litigations in the Vermont court and in the United States District Court and the United States Court of Appeals for the 2nd District in New York City for probably a good decade. And I connected with him and I asked him to provide me examples of the NEFs, Notices of Electronic Filings, for some of his orders. And lo and behold, when he provided me the documents, they were of the type that I called Kozinski fraud, null and void. They were missing the digital signatures, the RSA encrypted, R as in Robert, S as in Sam, A as in Apple, RSA encrypted digital signatures, and therefore they were basically worthless papers, not court orders at all. But he was deceived by the court for a good decade that way. So the most prominent issue in it was that one of the key orders was issued by the Court of Appeal for the 2nd District by 3 circuit judges. One of them was Sonia Sotomayor, who is today Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. Therefore, my claim is that I have evidence, direct documentary evidence, of a justice of the United States Supreme Court participating in fraud from the bench. And I claim also it's with no immunity because of the fact that such conduct was not really judicial conduct. It was extrajudicial or non-judicial conduct, because the way the courts manage those cases of alleged fraud is that they do not even enter the commencing papers, the petition or the complaint. Therefore, there was nothing before the 2nd Circuit Court of Appeal to adjudicate. Therefore, there was no reason for Justice Sotomayor to issue her order unless it was meant to mislead and deceive Scott Uminsky. That's at the top. At the same time, in the past couple of weeks, I initiated a script account and started publishing papers in that site, and it was a surprising success. I got within a couple of weeks to something like 3,000 reads on my documents. There are probably about 80 documents now. But they're very clear winners, and the biggest winner of them all is a very simple paper, which was analysis of data from the computer of the Los Angeles Sheriff Department, which showed that the system is basically fraudulent, and it's used to mask false imprisonments on large scale. That paper, which is kind of very dry and just gives statistics of data that I extracted from the system regarding inmates named Jose Martinez and Jose Ramirez, just as common names, and also as a control on the Anglo side, John Williams and John Smith. And I believe that the data, when it would be analyzed by a full-blown statistician, will also show strong racist discrimination against Hispanics. By that I mean, if you're Hispanic in Los Angeles, you're much more likely to be jailed with no documentation and have fraudulent data entered on the system to justify your jailing and arrest. So that's at the level of the sheriff, and there was correspondence with the sheriff also in the last couple of weeks, and it was enhanced by involvement of the supervisor of LA County, one of the 5 supervisors, Michael Antonovich, whom I approached, and he issued inquiries on the Sheriff's Department to answer my request for the arrest and booking papers of the 2 attorneys who were hospitalized after they filed coercively hospitalized after they filed complaints against judges that are of the Los Angeles Superior Court. And in one case it's Richard Fine, after he exposed widespread corruption of the judges of Los Angeles Superior Court, so widespread that it required the governor of California to sign a law providing retroactive immunities or pardons for all the judges of Los Angeles County. Less than 2 weeks after the retroactive immunities / pardons were signed into law, he was taken or abducted in open court with no warrant, and it's now 10 months that he's hospitalized. The sheriff of Los Angeles County absolutely refuses to allow access to inspect or to copy the California public records, which are the warrants and the booking papers of the 2 attorneys, Richard Fine and Ronald Gottschalk. Instead, I had a series of letters from the Sheriff's Department after Supervisor Antonovich gracefully intervened, in which the sheriff referred me again and again to the fraudulent data online, which was obviously false and deliberately misleading, because it claimed that those attorneys were arrested and were prosecuted by the Municipal Court of Los Angeles, and no municipal court exists for almost a decade now. Even after I pointed out to them repeatedly in the last 3 months that the data is false and misleading, they would not correct it, because there are no warrants, there are no sentences, there's no prosecution, it's all false data.